Let's be honest, water-type Pokemon are everywhere. As of Gen 9, there are 161 of them, making up 16% of all Pokemon, despite the fact that if you divide the number of types there are, you'd expect around 6% each. But given that 70% of the Earth's surface is water, and Pokemon games certainly don't shy away from that fact, I suppose we have to expect that. With that said, Generation 4 is no exception, and if I were to tackle a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum, we'd have this many total viable encounters. So for this run, to make sure it's a reasonable challenge, I'm going to invite my good friend Thanos to the party and do what he does best. Randomly erase half of these, and this is what we're left with. What if we can only use the first encounter that we find in each area? Our Pokemon are permanently boxed if they're KO'd, and we can use no items in battle with only these encounters available? It's time to find out. This is looking like a good challenge, I'll say that much. The Sinnoh region post-snap. The Infinity War sure seems to have done a number on water types in particular. However, it seems that Professor Rowan is blissfully unaware as Piplup seems to have survived, meaning we now have our very first encounter of the run, and thank goodness, as Empoleon is a personal favorite of mine. Right after getting our starters, Barry challenges us to battle, and this was basically a growl versus withdraw fest, lowering his attack while he raises his defense. Unfortunately, we only have pound, meaning we pretty much do like 1 HP on him, so I make sure to growl him right to the point that he's only doing 1 HP on us as well. With him using more withdraws than us using growls, that ultimately means we're able to get more attacks off, although his base HP is definitely higher than ours. It all comes down to whether or not one of us misses a tackle or gets a crit, and neither happens in fact, as we get brought to just 4 HP in the red before a final attack does him in. A scary battle to start off this challenge, but our little penguin guy did it. Alright, Barry says there's a legendary Pokemon over here by the lake, so let's go entertain him and see what he's talking about. Wait, what the f*** is that? Cyrusumon? That's definitely a dark type. Aptly nicknaming our Piplup H2 Bro, we then get the return TM from Rowan before also being able to head east from Jubilife to pick up a crucial item for us, the old rod from this guy in the Route 218 gate. Amazing! I then check out H2 Bro's stats, and it turns out he's got a bold nature giving him plus defense and minus attack stats, which is actually pretty great. I then decide to fish right here on Route 218 for our next encounter, a Magikarp that I name Madam Splash, and who has a not so good nature, modest, plus special attack and minus attack. Brutal for a future Gyarados, but oh well. Not worth resetting the game at this point. Leaving Jubilife, Barry then challenges us to another battle, this time with both of us having a new team member, but I don't think ours is very useful. Against the Starly, we get hit by Quick Attack before using Bubble, and it's a good thing we have a special attack, as Starly then keeps using Growl, just like we do against it on the first turn thanks to our Quick Claw activating. 3 more bubbles then do the job, with that Quick Claw coming in handy, although our attack is now at -4 as his Turtwig comes in. That's right, we're stuck using a resisted special move now, which does like nothing. This ends up being another Withdraw and Growl fest, but this time Withdraw doesn't mean much since we're sticking with Bubble. After all our growls, he's only able to do 2 HP damage on us per attack, so it's gonna come down to a crit if we do happen to lose here. And he does get one to hit us to 12 HP. Uh-oh. But it turns out H2 Bro is too much of a bro to be defeated, tanking a final tackle on 6 HP this time before taking him down and leveling up. Wild how that battle had so many different dynamics, but kinda came down to the same principle as the last one. Thankfully, that's the last coin flip battle we'll have to win with him, to my knowledge. Moving all the way to Orberg, we then have an even bigger challenge upon us, the first gym leader, Roark, the Rock-type specialist, and with Magikarp not being able to evolve yet because of the level cap, this is nerve-wracking. Against this Geodude at least, we can land the same type attack bonus 4 times super effective Bubble to 1-hit KO it, and next is Onix. And I brought Magikarp along specifically because from experience, I know Roark's Onix always tends to use Stealth Rock on the first turn if the player has more than 1 Pokemon, which is a waste of time for him as Bubble barely doesn't KO on a Sliver. However, he does use a potion, and since Onix has so much HP, it doesn't heal him to full, meaning our next attack can take him down. Yes! We then level up, which is allowed in Hardcore Nuzlocke so long as we're at the level cap when the battle starts. And I also knew we needed to be at full health for what's up next, his ace, Cranidos. Our Quick Claw activates turn 1, so we hit the bubble, amazing, avoiding the chance of his headbutt flinching us. He then hits a second one, bringing us to 15 HP, and we don't flinch, but my calcs were just off it seems, as I barely don't KO. And no, his headbutt could have the range to KO us from here, but our bubble gets the speed drop on him. Unreal. Not only that, but to add insult to injury, our Quick Claw activates again, sealing the deal. I cannot believe that. It was a range for him to KO us, but we also had to worry about the flinch chance, but H2 Bro pulled through in the most epic way possible. That plus defense nature could have saved us otherwise, but it was definitely better not taking the chance. First badge in the books. After Rowan lays it on the Galactic Grunts, we have to add insult to injury and destroy them in battle, and fortunately H2 Bro's bubble does hit both opposing Pokemon in double battles, as Barry's Chimchar took all the heat.
Ironic.
H2 Bro's Bronus reaches the next level as he evolves into a Prinplup, a great power up for us and also bringing us one step closer to the GOAT. Actually, Sylph, he's a penguin. Shut up! But before we move on, there's something I must do. Ah, that's better. In the Ravaged path ahead, there's an anomaly as we find a wild Psyduck, but Psyduck had been Thanos snapped, so what the heck is going on here?
The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out.
I guess there's nothing to do but catch him and keep pressing on ahead. We won't use him in battle though, but he will be a good HM Mon. After arriving in Floroma Town, it finally unlocks Oran Berries for us, much needed, and also the Pluck TM, which might be handy, especially for the next gym. To the east is the Valley Windworks, which is actually the location of our next encounter, a Buizel which I catch and name Splash Gordon, and who has a hardy, neutral nature. And despite running calculations like a madman, I could not find a way for us to beat Commander Mars with our current setup. So, because the level cap is 22 here, I instead switch train Madam Splash all the way to level 20, to have her evolve into a monster Gyarados, which should definitely be a big help. Mars leads with a Zubat with Toxic of all things, so I go in with Gordon who outspeeds, landing the Water Gun for a third before she indeed poisons us. Another hit brings her low before she lands a bite, and Toxic brings us to 2/3 before another attack does her in. With Gordon now at half health, in comes Perugly, and this is why I reserved Madam Splash. We can switch her in knowing Fake Out's coming anyway, intimidating her off the bat. Now her attacks don't do as much, and Bite is doing a third on her. Her berry does heal her though, making us miss the range just slightly, and then she gets a crit to slam us below half, but the esteemed Madam pulls through and takes her down with a final bite. Yeah, with that Perugly having full attack strength and Gordon being on a timer, there's no way H2 Bro could have pulled that off alone. Evolving was the right choice. Then, up ahead in Eterna Forest, we had a terrifying battle that I was not expecting, as while engaging with Cheryl in a double battle, we had to face a Pachirisu with 2 or 4 times super effective Spark of all things. But fortunately for us, he kept targeting Cheryl's Chansey instead. Even with Intimidate, that could have gotten ugly very quickly. Either way, we then make it to Eterna City, where I make sure to go pick up the Explorer Kit right away, as it's going to be key for a later evolutionary item. Wait, how did she know I was a trainer? How did she know I knew Rowan? How does she know so much about me? You know, upon second thought, that's a stalker I'm okay with having. On Route 212, I make sure to pick up what I think will be a crucial TM, Taunt, before then attaching the Soothe Bell to Madam Splash and running around like crazy to maximize her friendship. I'm sure you might be able to imagine why this is necessary. That's right, it's time for the second gym leader, Gardenia, and I must say, as a grass gym leader in this run, this is one of the scariest battles I can recall in recent memory. But I have a bit of a plan. Leading with Madam to use Taunt right away, and yes, she did go for Reflect as I hoped, so we blocked it entirely and can unleash with a max power return thanks to our friendship, which does 3/4. Grass Knot then does a quarter on us before we can take her down with another. Then comes Cherim, and this is why it was so critical that we prevented Reflect, as return doesn't even do half without it. Fortunately, she just used Safeguard on the first turn, but our attack just barely doesn't take her down on 2 HP, so she hits another Grass Knot to bring us low. She then Super Potions, but it doesn't quite bring her to full, so 2 consecutive attacks can then down her. And with us not getting that range on the second attack, our health is far lower than I expected heading into her ace, Roserade, which promptly outspeeds us and bam, knocks down Madam Splash instantly. There's just no way. How is this possible? I then send in H2 Bro, who survives Magical Leaf magically on just 7 HP before our berry activates. Then we hit the pluck for nearly half, and it steals her citrus berry too, but it's still not enough, as she can then just go for Grass Knot and knock out H2 Bro on the next turn. Our last hope is Gordon, but nope. He gets outsped and wiped off the map immediately as we lose our first attempt. I don't know how this is going to be possible, I really don't. Regardless, after restarting the whole game from the start, I make it back to Eterna Gym with a fresh new party, now consisting of Mr. Splash with a neutral nature, Gordon the second with a naive one, and H2 Bro the second with a quirky one. And I went way deeper with EV training this time around, hoping the strategy will pay off. Even just not having a modest Gyarados should help a bit. I begin with the same strategy, taunting Turtwig and preventing Reflect, which works well. Then I can see the damage output from Mr. Splash is far better than his counterpart, but still not enough to one-hit KO Turtwig. Then she gets a crit on Grass Knot, bringing us below half before our berry. You've gotta be kidding me. Well, this is hopeless. Regardless, I press on, this time having baited her Super Potion usage on Turtwig instead, taking it down in 2 more attacks, but this time I grinded enough to level up after this first KO. When Cherrim comes in, I know we don't have enough power for the one-hit KO still, so I go for Bite instead, as at least it gives us, yes, the flinch chance, which activates. That means I can freely use Return to get the range from there, taking no damage from Cherrim. But then in it comes Roserade. This thing is a monster, as with Gyarados' weight being so heavy, Grass Knot has huge damage, but she goes for Stun Spore instead, and Mr. Splash makes it through, but not quite enough before her berry. Oh no. Then she hits the Grass Knot, as Mr. Splash tanks it on just 11 HP in the red, and makes it through Paralysis to knock her down. There's no way. I thought after that critical hit from Turtwig we were toast, but Mr. Splash pulled through. Alright, what I thought might be an insurmountable roadblock has been defeated. This may yet be possible. Okay, I'd like to pick the brain of the architect who designed this building, if they even have one. Eterna City is not quite done with us yet though, as in the Galactic Building we have another big test, Commander Jupiter, who I lead with Gordon against her Zubat. This thing has Giga Drain, so hitting it with Aqua Jet was nearly pointless as she hits us to near half and almost recovers to full. A crit would take us out from here, so I go into H2 Bro to tank the next one much better, then outspeed with Bubble Beam on the next turn. She hits us again to near half before we finally KO that thing with another. Then comes the big threat, Skuntank, the reason why I've kept Mr. Splash in the back, as now I can intimidate her upon the switch. With that said, we still have to watch out for Night Slash crits, but she doesn't get one on her first attack at least. She then uses Poison Gas on the next turn, as our return does less than half. Being poisoned is not ideal, but I have no other choice, so I stay in, and Night Slash hits us to half before I go for Dragon Rage, hoping it might get the range, but nope, as she survives in the red before her berry. The whole run hinges on whether she gets a crit right here, but she doesn't, allowing us the KO from here and quite literally saving the run. That was a risky one, but our team was lucky enough to pull through. Our journey then brings us to the secret entrance to Wayward Cave underneath the Route 206 bridge, where we can make it all the way to the end to get one of the best TMs in the game, Earthquake. I've been playing Pokemon TCG Pocket a lot lately, and let me tell you, this thing and its evolution have been a nightmare. Get it away from me. At the cool contest, you gotta pull off a cool move. Gets the judges all excited. If the judges' excitement peaks, you score massive bonus points. So hot. Wow, they really put the freak in Game Freak. Now you wouldn't think it, but acquiring the Poffin case is actually going to be very useful for this Nuzlocke for like the first time ever, and you'll see why in a bit. And just as useful is BB, I think her name is pronounced, who gives us a gift Eevee in Hearthome, our next official encounter, which I name Aquafina, and who has a hardy neutral nature. That means it's time to head underground to find the item that we need, and boy did this ever take a long time, as I kept finding adjacent items like the Fire Stone, but we eventually got it, the Water Stone. Yes, this allows us to evolve Aquafina immediately into a Vaporeon, giving our team some much needed bulk for sure. And not only that, but before the next gym we have an epic evolution right at the level cap of 28 as Gordon II evolves into a Float Soul and learns Crunch upon evolution, perfect for that gym's typing. Speaking of which, it's time for the third gym leader, Fantina, the Ghost type specialist, and yet another one who looks quite challenging on the face of it. Also, it turns out Aquafina has no moves that can affect any of her Pokemon, as even finding the Water Pulse TM requires Surf. Don't get the logic there, that's kinda terrible design, but with that said, our new evolution is key as we can instantly take down her Duskull with a Crunch, and I don't think we needed that crit to one-hit KO either. That then baits in Mismagius with Magical Leaf, so I switch into Mr. Splash, who's not weak to it thanks to that part flying typing, but she went for Confuse Ray instead. That's not ideal, as you can only get the Person Berry from the Berry Master at terrible daily odds, and I happen to not get it. As she then lands Shadow Ball on the next turn for a third, and then we hit ourselves. No! Another attack brings us to a quarter and drops our special defense too, but our Oran Berry heals us, and we snap out of confusion to hit the bite and bring her to the red before her berry. Well, that was not a great sequence, but here I pivot back into Gordon to tank the next one, which does huge damage, fortunately not a crit though, and now we have like the one thing you can get in the game to this point that outspeeds Mismagius, landing the Crunch to take advantage of its poor physical defense and get the KO. Beautiful. And as it turns out, my calcs tell me we should be able to outspeed and one-hit KO Haunter as well with a 104% damage range, and we do, as even Sucker Punch wouldn't have got the range on us from there. Incredible. Gordon really carried his weight there. I'm impressed. 3 badges in the books. In the Route 209 gate, Mr. Barry then challenges us to battle, and against his lead Staravia, I go in with H2 Bro to tank the Intimidate. He uses Double Team right away, and we miss our first Bubble Beam, which is not good, but then he preemptively switches out of nowhere into Grottle. I mean, okay. This gives me an opportunity to go into Mr. Splash for the Intimidate from our side as he went for Withdraw. That is a bit scary actually, as I land the return and only do half. His -1 Razor Leaf doesn't get a crit though and does quite little damage to us, then return brings him to the red. He hits us again to bring us to 2/3 before another attack downs him. In comes Intimidate Staravia again, so I make the switch back into H2 Bro as he starts double teaming again, then hits a wing attack before Bubble Beam does connect and does huge damage. He then uses Endeavor to bring our HP to the same level as his, but our berry helps us a bit before our second one takes him down. Then comes Weasel, and it's time to assert dominance with Gordon, but he does land the Pursuit before we switch, which was a bit scary as it looked like we would have only survived a crit by exactly 1 HP. Damn. Gordon can then land a Crunch, followed by a Quick Attack to take his inferior form down, and the level up gives us enough power to safely Aqua Jet Ponyta into the ground and win us the battle. One close call, but otherwise I think our team synergy handled that quite effectively. That win grants us access to Route 209, meaning we can finally pick up the Good Rod from this fisherman, which is going to immediately open up a new encounter right here, a Goldeen, which I named Deluge and who has a neutral, docile nature. It's time to put that old Sea King meme to the test, ladies and gentlemen. Further ahead we can pick up the Roost TM, which should be handy for a future encounter, and a long trek brings us to the next gym location, Veilstone City. Now this place is loaded with amazing pickups once we get the coin case, as the Game Corner offers crazy rewards with a bunch of great TMs and held items. Time to become a degenerate gambling streamer. Oh man, it's not allowed apparently. Well, guess we might as well go on ahead and challenge the 4th gym leader, Maylene, the fighting type specialist. She leads with a pure power Metatite as I go in with H2 Bro to start, instantly hitting the Bubble Beam for 3/4 before she uses Rock Tomb to drop our speed. Because she now outspeeds, she hits a Drain Punch and gets recovery, but fortunately we still have the range to knock her out from there with another. Then in comes a huge threat, Lucario, so I immediately pivot into Mr. Splash for the Intimidate, tanking the -1 resisted Force Palm with ease. Since she only has fighting, steel, and ground moves, we either resist or are immune to all of her moves, so Force Palm is what she's stuck with, netting us an easy KO with super effective Earthquake, taking little damage in the process. Her final Pokemon is then Machoke, and I hit an Earthquake for just about half before Rock Tomb brings us to half and drops our speed. A crit would KO from here, so I play it safe and go into Aquafina, whose bulk has us tank Rock Tomb quite well. Problem is, I have no water attacking moves, and Machoke now outspeeds, but I go for Growl to drop its attack, and then we did get a crit quick attack off before we're in the danger zone for a crit again despite our Barry helping. With its attack now at -2, I feel safe going into Gordon, who eats up a strength well and can Aqua Jet that thing into oblivion. A crit would have been risky at many points, but that attack lowering really came through for us. 4th badge acquired. Oof, I'm so sorry, Dawn. In this double battle with her, because the opponents are all poison types, I kept spamming Earthquake to mow them down, destroying her Pokemon in the process. And we even got swaggered, so our attack was +2. All in the name of the greater good. Utilitarian John Stuart Mill would be proud. With the south of Veilstone now open to us, we finally unlock some of the best infinite items in the game, citrus berries. Now that'll be helpful. They say there's a legendary Pokemon in this lake. I aim to capture it on film like I've done before. It was me who filmed that red Gyarados at the Lake of Rage. Actually, that's not a legendary. This hotel is so romantic. I hope a night on a Pokemon will sweep me away for a honeymoon here. Well, you're in luck! Route 213 then offers us a new encounter, a Wingull that I named Lakefarer because Seafarer is too mainstream, and it has a sassy plus special defense and -speed nature, meh. Not only that, but the Great Marsh is now accessible too, and in here I was running around really hoping to find a Wooper, but we found a Quagsire instead, which is way harder to catch. And we could very well lose our encounter here, but thank goodness on the 3rd ball we got it. That was so nerve-wracking. I name him Deadwake, who has a serious, neutral nature. In here we can also find the Toxic TM, which is great for our team, and I can't take this mud anymore. The nearby move tutor is also a blessing, as we can teach Floatzel and Quagsire the Ice Punch move, and dive to Gyarados and Quagsire to finally get a physical water move. I had my bike registered and used it instead of my rod in front of this really pretty girl. So embarrassing. And the encounter hall doesn't end yet, as Route 212 has a good rod encounter for us, Remoraid, which I'm really excited about. Welcome to the team, Hydron, with a naive plus speed and -special defense nature, which I think should be pretty decent for its evolution. And while training up for the next gym, Deluge evolves into a Sea King, who I'm really hoping will have a chance to shine, and I waited until level 37 to get Waterfall before evolving. Not only that, but Hydron also evolves quite quickly into an Octillery, and I rarely get to use one of these, so this is so cool. It unfortunately has suction cups, not sniper, but ah well. I'm also going to hold off on evolving Wingull since it gets Air Slash, its only special flying move, at level 47. Right in front of the next gym, Barry challenges us to battle, and I lead with Hydron, who has 105 base stats in both offenses, and with the Ice Beam TM from Veilstone, his Staravia had no hope. And with that plus speed nature, we can also unleash with it against his Grotle, but it doesn't quite KO surprisingly, as Razor Leaf hits, and damn that did a lot, as our Barry brings us to half and we can KO on the next turn. Jeez. Octillery has 75 in all defenses, and Grotle has an 89 attack, so I guess that made sense. Ponyta then only manages a stomp before Bubble Beam demolishes it, and his final Pokemon is Buizel. With this thing having Pursuit, I'm a little nervous to switch, so I stay in, bait it, and then use Bullet Seed, which is quite a strange move for a pure water type to have. And luckily enough, we get a 5-hit, meaning Hydron tanks a quick attack and lands one more for the KO and the clean sweep, being left in the red. One of the best debut performances by a Pokemon of ours in any run, I'd say. And we get quite the reward for winning, as H2 Bro becomes Bromaster Deluxe and evolves fully into a monster Empoleon. Gosh, I love this thing. Okay, you guys don't have to believe me, as I forgot to record here, but this gym trainer's name is Sailor Sin. Do with that information what you will. With that, it's time to challenge the 5th gym leader, Wake, our water-type arch-nemesis. Let's see what we have in store for him, as I lead with Mr. Splash against his Gyarados, meaning we intimidate each other. But I have a secret weapon, as Gyarados can learn Thunderbolt via the Veilstone TM, offering us a move unaffected by Intimidate, and which is of course 4 times super effective against him. It hits him to the red, he uses Bite, and then we can land another to bring him to like 1 HP. Then, Mr. Competitive Pokemon player Wake preemptively switches into Quagsire for immunity. Damn. Now, I know this looks like another Pokemon that would wall our team, however, I know he won't go for a ground move while Gyarados is on the field, so I switch into H2 Bro for the resisted Rock Tomb, and then taught him the Grass Knot TM, offering us a 4-time super effective move to handle that derpy dude. Then back out comes the Gyarados again, and unfortunately Wake heals it fully for a second time. But I do land the attack just to ensure that upon switching back out to our Gyarados, we can intimidate and finally have the range to KO that damn thing, but it survives barely again somehow before we could take it down with like a 5th Thunderbolt. His final Pokemon is then Floatzel, and we are lower health than I thought we'd be at this point, so I go back into H2 Bro, as his amazing typing allows us to resist every move that he has, allowing us a steady KO with Grass Knots despite him getting a defense drop on us. Now that was a wicked display of team synergy. Okay, this whole bomb sequence reminds me of the movie A House of Dynamite that I watched recently. Greatest first third of a movie in many years, and then a stunning disappointment. We next stumble in on Looker, the international police member, just straight up mogging the regular police. Now, you'll have to forgive me for my performance against Cyrus in Celestic Town here. I had just chugged my coffee and I was on like adrenaline overload as I really wanted to have Seeking have a good performance. So, naturally, I used Aqua Ring and put a Citrus Berry on Deluge, and Sneasel uses Screech to lower our defense and then hit 2 slashes, which I risked, and no crit, but we do survive on just 8 HP before our Berry and Aqua Ring. So we take it down in 2 waterfalls, and again, I really wanted the sweep for Seeking. So I stayed in against Golbat, which hit us down to just 3 HP with Bite, and then not even being at that low health allowed Max Power Flail to take that thing down. Goodness me. Okay, I tried. I really did. I then brought out Aquafina for the Ice Beam KO on Golbat through Supersonic Confusion and him Poison Fanging us like crazy. Citrus Berry definitely saved us on that one. Finally, Murkrow could get murked by H2 Bro's Supreme Resistance powers even through a crit Drill Peck. And Cynthia's grandma then gives us the best move in the entire game for our team, the Surf HM. It's about damn time. A house nearby also grants us the black glasses, but if we come here later we can get one of the best items in the game, the Choice Specs, which is a huge pickup. Way to the west in Canalave, Barry then challenges us for the penultimate time, and his team is quite powered up and diverse at this point, so this one took some planning. I lead with Mr. Splash with Intimidate against his now fully evolved Staraptor with Intimidate, knowing I can use a special move in Thunderbolt, but his double teaming makes that difficult, meaning we get hit to nearly half before we can take him down. His now evolved Rapidash then comes in, so I go into Dead Wake to tank Takedown and Tail Whip before Earthquake destroys him. And this was to make sure that I baited in his now fully evolved Torterra, as I can bait the grass move onto H2 Bro, who's neutral to it thanks to that steel typing, and then outspeed with the 4-time super effective Ice Beam 1-hit KO. Incredible. That then brings in Heracross as planned, as it offers us a chance to intimidate that physical attacking monster by baiting resisted Brick Break, which brings us into Berry range, and then I can bring in Hydron more safely, knowing he won't use a stab move, as he then does on the next turn to bring us to half before our Berry, and we can unleash with Flamethrower, which, yes, Octillery, the pure water type, can learn. Talk about versatility. It brings him low before Brick Break brings us below half, but another does the trick from there. His final Pokemon is then his fully evolved Floatzel, and Mr. Splash is a great counter, being brought to 50 HP before a final T-Bolt does him in. Not bad, team, not bad. Making our way through the Canalave Gym, we then arrive at Byron, the Steel-type specialist, and Roark's daddy. And this is why I was so scared of the Snap Lock. I was worried we might not get a part ground type, and in fact we did lose 2 of the 3, Whiscash and Gastrodon, but Quagsire was the one answer we had to Magneton, being able to stab 4-time super effective 100 power Earthquake it. I can then use our newly picked up Surf against his incoming Steelix for more damage due to its low special defense, but it barely doesn't KO on a Sliver somehow, allowing him the Earthquake on us before our Berry activates. He then heals, and then 2 more can do the job. His final Pokemon is then Bastiodon, and with that 4 times weakness to ground and our resistance to all of his moves, there was never any hope for him, as we win our 6th badge quite handily. Thank goodness you survived the snap, Deadwake. Don't know what we'd have done without you. For winning, we also get the Flash Cannon TM, finally giving us a special stab steel move for Empoleon. Wicked. I can never stop imagining if all these Magikarp started evolving after the Galactic Grunts made fun of them. Absolute chaos. That actually kinda happened in the anime, come to think of it, with Team Rocket. Taking on Commander Mars at Lake Verity, it turns out H2 Bro is the perfect counter, being immune to poison and resisting flying, steel, psychic, and normal, which are literally all the types that she has. Unbelievable. And alas, after using Defog deep in Mount Coronet, we arrive at the lake. Yup, the lake. The lake where I will spend the rest of my days searching for our next and final encounter, otherwise known as Feebas Lake, where only 4 out of the 528 water tiles contain Feebas, which you have to fish, and he's only a 50% chance to find in each tile. This is an utterly insane process designed for truly the most degenerate of Pokemon fans, and boy do I ever fit into that category. My odds weren't terrible, I suppose, as after 116 tiles searched, a few of which I fished in twice for good measure, we find it, Feebas, which I named Mariner and who has a rash plus special attack and minus special defense nature, which will be pretty good for its evolution actually. Picking up the Never Melt Ice to boost our ice moves along the way, we then make it through the Icy Route 216 before making it to Snow Point City Gym, where the next test, the 7th gym leader, Candice, awaits. And it took me a while to think of a strategy for her, but we really only have one answer. I lead with H2 Bro against her Sneasel, resisting feint attack, and I taught him Stealth Rock, which I get up since we have the defensive opportunity to do so, as a stab super effective 80 power flash cannon then crushes her. Good timing picking up that TM. Then in comes Piloswine, a big threat, but I can go into Mr. Splash for the Earthquake immunity and the free Intimidate. This makes me feel safe to get Aquafina out there knowing the Stone Edge was coming, which we tank well and can then unleash with a stab super effective Surf from a base 110 special attack Pokemon for the one-hit KO. This then baits out her Abomasnow with that part grass typing, which gets hurt by the Stealth Rocks, and then I go into Mr. Splash knowing the Wood Hammer is coming, intimidating and tanking it reasonably well. Now I go into H2 Bro to tank the next, knowing we can flash cannon it from that range thanks to his recoil and the Stealth Rock damage. Her final Pokemon is then Frostlass, and Snowcloak really can be the difference maker here, but H2 Bro pulls through, resists Shadow Ball, and connects the flash cannon, with the Stealth Rock having given us the range to get the one-hit KO and win the battle. Man, Abomasnow is a threatening Pokemon for a water team, but we handled that pretty beautifully. With a new level cap having opened up, we can finally evolve good old Lakefarer into a Pelipper, and not only that, but having fed Mariner enough puffins to satisfy a Snorlax, its beauty stat reaches high enough to have him evolve into a gorgeous Milotic, a Pokemon that is insanely rare to be able to use in a Nuzlocke, and I cannot wait to try out. Not gonna lie, this dude has some crazy gravitational aura for a 27-year-old. After H2 Bro sweeps Cyrus's team completely in the galactic headquarters in Veilstone again thanks to that insane defensive typing. Okay, I know your name is Looker, but I am not looking in, and I quote, that hole? We then traverse through Mount Coronet all the way to the Spear Pillar, where a double battle awaits us against Jupiter and Mars with Barry on our side. Oh great. And since our double battle partner is not our own Pokemon, I have no problem hurting them, as I attach the choice specs on H2 Bro so we can spam a 95 power stab move from a base 111 special attack Pokemon with a 50% power boost. Even through Confusion and Light Screen from Bronzor, we can make it through both of them and then damage both their Purugly and Skuntank massively, even despite their Citrus Berries, taking down Barry's Rapidash as well purposefully to bring in his Intimidate Staraptor. We did get put to sleep, but Staraptor's close combat demolished Purugly and baited the Flamethrower from Skuntank, a takedown onto their incoming Golbat, Staraptor going down to a Poison Fang, and then Heracross slamming Skuntank to the red did some good for us, but then Skuntank targeted us instead of Heracross with Flamethrower, which I was not expecting, but H2 Bro survives the turn on just a sliver. Goodness gracious, that was close. Why not go for the fire move on the bug type? Here I brought in Lakefarer though, a good reasonably bulky choice who could bring us through to the end of the battle with Surfs against their Golbat and with the help of Barry's Floatzel too. For once, Barry didn't completely shaft us this battle. What a pleasant surprise. Legendary insanity then ensues, with more legendaries appearing on screen at once than existed in all of Gen 1. This fact will never cease to amaze me. We're then thrown into the distortion world, and I'll never forget how amazed I was as a kid playing through this for the first time. It's such a cool idea. But at the bottom, if there's even anything such as directions in this universe, Team Galactic leader Cyrus awaits us for our final showdown with him, one that always makes me incredibly nervous as he is super powerful. Let's try this out. He does lead with a Fire-type Houndoom, but with Dark Pulse, Will-O-Wisp, and Thunderfang, it's not to be underestimated, so I go in with Quagsire. Dark Pulse hits for what looks to be just over half, but we don't flinch, so Earthquake can demolish it from there. Thank goodness we didn't get flinched. I did not think it would do over half. Then comes Gyarados, so I enact our counter Gyarados strategy with our own, intimidating it, tanking a -1 waterfall and an Ice Fang with relative ease, or not, as we get frozen solid. No way. We then stay frozen for 3 consecutive turns before our berry thankfully heals us, then Thunderbolt gets a crit to fry that overgrown shrimp.
What did he say?
Damn, that was unfortunate, as my entire plan hinged around having Gyarados with his berry still. In comes Honchkrow next, as I go into H2 Bro, who has perfect resistance against him, and Surf isn't quite able to KO, but it does activate his full restore here at least, rather now than later, as a few attacks do him in with us being brought to a quarter. Then comes a big threat, Weavile, and this is why Mr. Splash was so needed, as we intimidate it and tank Fake Out, followed by Ice Punch on a quarter, and then hit the Earthquake for about half. This is not good, as my whole plan was to Dragon Dance, but that freeze earlier destroyed everything. Here I switch in Hydron, hoping for no crit, but no, he gets one, bringing us to a sliver before our berry. Everything is going terribly wrong here, and almost our entire team is hurt since I had to bring an HM Pokemon. I have no choice but to bring in Lakefarer here, as Night Slash hits, and no crit. He then hits Ice Punch to bring us into berry range, thank goodness for our bulk investment, and Surf barely doesn't KO him. Oh man. His berry then heals him as Ice Punch hits us below half again, and we can finally take that thing down. But it's not over yet, as he's got one Pokemon remaining, Crobat, and our team is all below half. Air Slash hits us, and Lakefarer survives on just 7 HP, but flinches. This luck, or lack thereof on our part, is clinically insane. And it was at this point that I realized I have no choice. I have to let Lakefarer go to another attack. Rest in peace, Toilet Bird. Okay, that was just rude. Our first death of this second attempt, and we're not out of the woods yet, as I still have nothing that's in safe range, but I go with Deadwake, and thank goodness he went for Toxic instead, as I had a Lumberry attached to prevent a potential burn from Houndoom, and we get the Yawn off as a consequence before getting slammed to the red with Air Slash. Ice Punch then does a third on him as he falls asleep, and now I switch into H2 Bro, really wishing I had kept Ice Beam at this point, as he stays asleep and Surf gets the range nonetheless. Oh, H2 Bro, you lifesaver. Deadwake also played that super clutch. Hey, my boy, thanks for letting me use your likeness for my Renegade Platinum thumbnail. Much appreciated. Oh dear goodness, this house is a water-type trainer's worst nightmare. Let me out of here. After convincing the sad Electric Man to leave the lighthouse and continue battling, I proceed to hold a funeral for my beloved Lakefarer before taking Gordon and Mariner back on the team for what's up next. The 8th gym leader, Electric Man. Okay, sorry, his name is Volkner. A terrifying prospect for our water team, but we have one answer, Deadwake with that park ground typing who tanks Iron Tail from Jolteon, and no. The defense drop, the one thing I knew we needed to avoid, as Earthquake is then able to clobber it. Raichu then does miss Focus Blast, which is insanely clutch as Deadwake pulverizes it as well. Then comes Electivire, and things are getting pretty serious since our defense is lowered, but he goes for Quick Attack and gets a crit. What has happened to our luck lately? Then my calcs were wrong it seems, as it survives Earthquake on a sliver before his berry. Ugh. Alright, change of plans. In comes Mr. Splash, knowing he won't use an electric move while Quagsire's on the field, and good thing I switched as the Intimidate makes the incoming Giga Impact manageable, and I knew he'd have to recharge on the next turn so we can freely Earthquake KO him. His final Pokemon is then Luxray as I switch in Deadwake, predicting the incoming Thunderfang. Then with our defense now restored, can tank Crunch in the red before our berry, and then Earthquake him into the red. Here, I go back into Mr. Splash to Intimidate as I knew he'd full restore, then bait the electric move onto Deadwake again as Crunch does even less, but gets the defense drop again. Oh man, as we bring him to the red again. But now we can bait the Crunch on Gyarados again, freely letting us outspeed and Earthquake him for the KO, netting us our 8th and final badge. Talk about pivoting. Leaving Sunyshore, we then run into Jasmine, a Johto gym leader who canonically has an Empoleon, by the way, who gives us the best move in the game for several of our Pokemon, Waterfall. That being locked behind the 8th gym is kinda brutal for us, not gonna lie. A long trip through Victory Road then has us arrive at our final test, the Sinnoh Region Pokemon League. But we have one last challenge before we take it on, Barry with his fully powered up team. I decided to bring back Aquafina on the team for this one, not being affected by Staraptor's Intimidate and setting up Aqua Ring after he U-turns. Now we get leftovers and Aqua Ring recovery every turn, and as expected he pivoted into Torterra, offering us the free 4x damage 1-hit KO with Ice Beam. Snorlax then comes in and we get paralyzed by his very first Body Slam hit. I can't get over how terrible our luck has been in the late game. We then stay paralyzed on the next turn but finally land a hit on the next, but we can't quite KO and we're within KO range now ourselves, so that plan failed miserably. I then switch in our secret weapon, that's right, Deluge, who I brought back on the team for this battle, knowing he'd rest so I can set up Aqua Ring, and with max HP and attack investment, I'm feeling pretty good about this, as I start landing Waterfalls, and Waterfall is going to increase in power each and every turn thanks to the Metronome item. We hit 2 before he wakes up and then goes for rest again. Yes, now that means we can progressively have a more and more powerful attack, taking him down in 3 more. But then Staraptor comes in with Intimidate, quite unfortunate, and U-turns into Rapidash. But that does offer Deluge yet another KO despite the -1 attack. Nice. However, Barry is strategizing quite well, as this means he can keep bringing in Staraptor to intimidate us over and over again. But he does close combat, meaning his defense drops, so Waterfall does over half. Unfortunately, Aqua Ring doesn't heal us enough, and you know what, I tried to make Deluge work, I really did, and he put in a good couple of KOs, but since we're not gonna bring him into the league anyway, this is his final battle either way. So might as well let Staraptor take him down and lower his defense further. That way we can bring in Gordon for the priority Aqua Jet KO. In comes Heracross, so I go into Mr. Splash to intimidate, tank close combat with ease, and with his lowered defense, Waterfall also gets a crit, so he had no hope. His final Pokemon is then Floatzel, and there's nothing he can really do to our team, so a couple Earthquakes then do the job and win us our final rival battle. Rest in peace, Deluge. Your contributions were truly astonishing, and you lived up to your ancient meme. Well, with that win under our belt, it's time for the final test, the Sinnoh Elite Four. After fulfilling the rest of our EVs, planning like a crazy person, and getting any remaining items and TMs we might need, let's take on the most powerful trainers in Sinnoh. The first Elite Four member is Aaron, the Bug-type specialist, and I was quite worried about him until one strategy came to mind. Against his Yanmega, I lead with Hydron with the Expert Belt attached from Route 221. And here's the key. I maxed out Hydron's speed EVs with the plus speed nature, and it gives us quite literally one more speed point than it, meaning it doesn't even get a chance to get speed boost to activate, as super effective Expert Belt boosted Ice Beam does it in immediately. And that speed isn't done yet, as it also allows us to blast his incoming Heracross with Flamethrower, but as soon as I hit it, I realized I forgot to remove Hydron's HP EVs with Pomeg Berries before I trained its special attack. So it does less than I had hoped, but it does get the burn, saving Hydron by lowering his attack. And the burn damage takes it down. Damn, that was a close one. Then comes Vespiquen, who also barely survives an Ice Beam, which I went for the freeze chance, which would be more valuable than the burn, and we do get it! Unreal! So after he heals, we can hit twice more for the knockout. Next up is Scizor, and oh gosh, I misclicked, landing a stupid Ice Beam on it as X-Scissor then hits us low before I can click the correct move. I was so damn panicked because of my EV mistake that I started freaking out. As in comes the biggest threat, Drapion, not weak to any of Hydron's moves, so I go into Mr. Splash instead for Intimidate. Now Drapion does have Sniper and high crit ratio moves, so we still have to be very careful. As 2 cross poisons hit, and the second one does get the crit, but our berry helps us to heal as Earthquake hits and does 3/4 before his berry. I do not want to get hit by a crit here, so I go into Deadwake to resist, then tank an X-Scissor with ease before landing the Earthquake to take that thing down and win us the battle. Whew, a very messy start, but we pulled through. The second Elite Four member is Bertha, and she's a tricky one with some good coverage, so I lead with H2 Bro against her Whiscash. Looks dangerous with that ground typing, I know, but don't forget we have a 4x super effective Grass Knot, which doesn't quite KO actually. Then I knew even an Earth Power crit wouldn't do us in, as it does just less than half, so after she heals, another 2 can do the job. Then comes Hippowdon, and boy do we ever have the answer for it. Stab super effective Surf with this massive base special attack Pokemon for the one-hit KO. Amazing. Now here's the problem. Gliscor, which outspeeds us, but I switch into Mr. Splash for immunity, and Intimidate doesn't work on it since it has Hyper Cutter. It does also have Thunderfang for coverage too, but I know I can switch in Deadwake freely, tank an Earthquake quite well, and then smash it with a super effective 4x damage Ice Punch for 3/4. With our ground typing, we're not hurt by Sandstorm, so after tanking another attack with our Berry's help, Deadwake can take out her biggest threat. Then comes Golem, so I switch into Mr. Splash for Intimidate and the Earthquake prediction. Then go for Dragon Dance, as I know we need the power as he hits a 4x super effective Thunder Punch, but I had attached a Wakan Berry for this reason, lowering the electric move power, so we tank it, and now even with their insanely high physical defense, a +1 4x effective Waterfall can do in both her Golem and her Rhyperior, winning us the second battle. Wow. The third Elite Four member is Flint, the Fire-type specialist, and we can't get too cocky with our Water team. He has electric coverage everywhere and the ability to set up Sun in a few places too. It took a while to think of what we could do to get through him, but it occurred to me Gordon, who I taught the Rain Dance TM to, which I use, but he counters it immediately with Sunny Day. I try again, and now on this turn he's of course not going to use it again when the sun was already up for him, so he hits a Dark Pulse for over half. But now, with Rain Boosted Expert Belt Waterfall, that thing had no hope of surviving. And Floatzel is one of the few things that can outspeed Infernape too, as that thing had Thunder Punch and Priority Mach Punch, which could have been dangerous, but I knew he'd choose the former since he didn't have the range. And Floatzel also outspeeds even Rapidash, as this thing is turning into a monster sweeper, as even a bulky Magmortar with Thunderbolt can't hang with him, getting smashed by this insane power. The rain then does stop, but my calcs tell me we don't need the rain boost for a Pokemon as frail as his Flareon, and they were correct as Gordon pulls off the wild League member sweep. That was incredible. The last Elite Four member is Lucian, the Psychic-type trainer, and the one I'm most worried about of all of them. I spent nearly half an hour planning this battle out, so let's see how we fare. Against his Mr. Mime, I lead with Gordon, knowing we cannot allow him to set up a Reflect or Light Screen, so the Expert Belt Crunch is the answer with that thing's physical frailty, netting the OHKO. And again, with an Alakazam with Energy Ball, you'd imagine we're in huge trouble, but nope. Gordon's lightning quick speed saves us again with the Crunch one-hit KO. But then, in it comes, the big threat, Gallade with a base 125 attack and high crit ratio Leaf Blade. I go into Mr. Splash for Intimidate against Drain Punch, and then go into H2 Bro predicting Stone Edge, which works for the resistance, but he gets a crit. Are you kidding me? Our Berry helps a bit, but I go back into Mr. Splash for Intimidate again, as he went for Leaf Blade for some reason, but no crit. I do this again, hoping for no crit, and this time he doesn't get one, so I can re-pivot for Intimidate for a third time. This time successfully baiting the Drain Punch. Another round of this has him at -4, whereupon he misses Stone Edge. Yes! Finally some luck, as Waterfall hits him below half before his Berry. Then he hits another, but no crit, so our Berry helps and we tag him, and we get the critical hit to annihilate that threat. Finally some luck on our side. But the job's not done yet, as in comes a wickedly powerful Pokemon, Espeon, for which I go into Mariner, our special wall who still gets hit for a third before leftovers. But now I can enact my defensive plan, spamming Recover and activating Aqua Ring. So we have 3 methods of recovery and can start using Surf repeatedly, and thankfully with him not getting a special defense drop on us from Psychic, the plan works out well, with us recovering to just over half health. With his incoming Bronzong having Calm Mind, he does start becoming too big of a threat for even the triple recovery method, so I make the switch into Hydron, and Flamethrower just barely doesn't KO on like 1 HP somehow, so Hydron gets taken down by a Psychic. Ouch. That one hurt, but that sacrifice gives us the opportunity to get Gordon out there to seal the deal. Rest in peace to our octopus boy. You really were a legend. Well, it's time. The final battle is upon us, the champion of the Sinnoh region, Cynthia, whose team is, well, need I say anything? We all know what she's capable of. With my best plan in place and my 5 Pokemon at the ready, let's go for it. Against her Spiritomb, I lead with Gordon, immediately setting up the rain before Shadow Ball hits us to just under half by 1 HP. Oh no. Well, I promised myself I'd send in Gordon just to smash through as much as possible, and we don't KO with rain-boosted Waterfall, but do get the flinch. Unreal. Saving Gordon from a high roll as we hit her again after she heals, and then she preemptively switches into Roserade. No way. So Waterfall does huge damage and we can outspeed on the next turn for the Ice Punch KO. Then she brings Togekiss out as the rain stops as I hit the Ice Punch again, which does over half, and I can't believe it, the freeze! Gordon really is fighting for his friend Hydron as another KOs. Then comes Garchomp, and yup, that's right, we can outspeed even it with the 4 times effective Ice Punch, getting the Expert Belt 1-hit KO on her ace Pokemon. I am stunned. This is the performance of a lifetime, but we're about to get walled hard by her Milotic. Here I switch in H2 Bro for resistance against her attacks, and I taught him the Toxic TM, putting that thing on a timer. This combined with Grass Knot proves to be effective, but she does have Mirror Coat which reflects back double damage to us, and damn, I did not think it would do that much, holy goodness, as our starter H2 Bro gets wiped off the map. It's time to activate our backup as I send in our own Milotic to assert dominance. And this was an insane grind fest, bulk versus bulk, as our 3 recovery method strategy nets us the knockout after a 4-minute back and forth just between those two. Then comes her Spiritomb again, and we can outspeed and pick it off with a Surf before her final Pokemon comes in, Lucario, which wham gets a critical hit Aurasphere right off the bat. Jeez, but Quagsire would be a risky switch. She's got high crit ratio Stone Edge against Gyarados, and Mariner has pulled us so far here, so I have to give him the chance to seal the deal. And he does survive the next one on just 24 HP, and can down her with a final Surf to finish the game. Wow, we did it! We beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Platinum with only water types and as a snap lock with half of our encounters deleted. That was a really fun and unique challenge, and I got to work with several Pokemon that I almost never get to use. What an enjoyable time. I hope you guys had as much fun with this one as I did, and I'll see you guys next time for another Pokemon challenge.